This is the BiggerPockets Podcast, show 219.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
What's going on, everybody? This is Josh Dorkin, host of the BiggerPockets Podcast, here with my co-host, Mr. Brandon Turner. What's up, man?
Hey, not much. It's a fine spring afternoon today, isn't it?
Happy March 23rd.
Happy March. Yeah, we're recording this a few weeks early, but it is officially springtime now, isn't it? When did that happen?
It feels like spring. We here in Denver have not had a winter after December. I don't think it snowed.
It snowed when I was
January
there.
Or February.
Did it? Yeah, it snowed when I was there, but
like an inch.
And then the next day it was warm again.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, it's been warm.
Well, happy spring.
Global warming. Science.
There's no such thing as global warming. All right. So today, we've got kind of a cool show. We've got a doctor on the show.
What's up, Doc?
Yeah, what's up, Doc? And he tells Josh all about, what's wrong with his face. And so we finally get to learn what's wrong with Josh.
Well, he's an oncologist, and we actually talk about that problem that I'm trying to get removed from the show.
We do anyway, but before we get to all that, yes, with a beard. Before we get to that,
how are things, man? Things are going well.
Things are fantastic. I know you and I just both finished the same book, which we didn't know each other were reading.
No, we didn't.
Essentialism.
Yeah. Fantastic book. I actually just talked about it in our all hands BiggerPockets team meeting this morning, and it's great. I just love the idea of breaking things down to their very basic core and doing those things that matter most and not wasting time or energy on everything else.
I agree. Yeah, I like that book a lot. It reminds me a lot of The One Thing, which is also one of my favorite books in general, yours too. So
Agreed.
Anyway, yeah, it was just funny that we were both like, you said you're reading it. I'm like, I'm reading it. We were like at the same spot and everything. It was weird.
Yeah, that was cool. You know what else was cool today, actually?
What's that?
So I'm working, and all of a sudden...
that is weird.
Wow, that was strange. I'm working, and all of a sudden I see like somebody come in, and they go to our kitchen here at the office, and they start dumping all this stuff, and I'm not really paying attention. And then I find out that Darren Sager, who Darren. I don't know what show Darren was a guest on, but Darren has been a guest on the podcast. He's one of our moderators, and he runs a meetup in New York, New Jersey for real estate investors on BP, through BP. So Darren had gone and bought lunch for everybody here at BiggerPockets. It was awesome.
That's awesome. I wonder what it tasted like. I bet it was good.
Qdoba delicious.
Oh, I bet that was
Taco Tuesday.
You know what I had? I had soup. Thanks, Darren.
Nice job. Thank you, Darren. We loved it. Everybody here was really, really excited about it. So thank you. Anyway, cool. Things are good, man. Things are good. Well, let's get to the show.
Yeah, let's do it. So before we get to the actual guest, let's get to today's quick tip. Good job. You want to do it?
Today's quick tip. What is today's quick tip, Brandon?
BiggerPockets.com/invites. INVITES.
Invites. Yes. That's where you go and you invite your colleagues, your connections to join you on BiggerPockets. So if you're a member and your agent isn't on the site, or your lender, or some of the other investors or some of the people that you think might want to be
like your
investors.
Mom. Like your mom.
Don't talk about my mom, dude.
Is your mom on BiggerPockets?
She might be.
I'm going to go friend request her or colleague request her.
Yes. Anyway, you can invite anybody to join you on BiggerPockets. We create a little referral link, and you can actually share your referral link on social media. You can send emails out however you want to get people to join you on the site. You can do that. BiggerPockets.com/invites.
There's a fancy little Facebook button. I just clicked it. I never clicked it before. And it actually shares this nice, cool looking little create a BiggerPockets account page on your Facebook. So try it out.
I love it.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Hey, guys. Again, this is show 19 of the BiggerPockets podcast. As we like to do from time to time, we are always looking for ratings and reviews. If you have not yet left us a rating and review on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, you name it, please do leave us a rating review. Subscribe to the show and spread the word. Let people know about the BiggerPockets podcast. We're a top 150 show consistently of every show on iTunes. And
we're not a top 10
it's remarkable.
Of all shows. So until we're beating Richard Simmons is missing or whatever, until we're beating that, We ain't good enough.
Cereal. Yeah. Come on, guys. Tell your friends. Get us up there. All right. Anyway, well, let's get to today's show. I'm having a hard time as well. All right, today's guest is Dr. Kenyon Meadows. Dr. Kenyon Meadows is a practicing radiation oncologist, and he focuses on alternate investment strategies and things like that. So it's really cool. We'll talk about exactly what is an alternate investment strategy. He lives in St. Simons Island, Georgia, with his 2 kids. Great guy, some really cool ideas. And this is a very, very cool show. I was very excited to record it and learn about some great new ideas. So,
and by the way, real quick, I'll say we're going to talk a lot about private lending at the beginning of the show. We just talked a lot about it. But even if you're not somebody who wants to lend out private money, listen to what he has to say, because you're talking about getting inside the mind of somebody who might lend you money on a deal. Like, this is how private lenders think. Here's how you can attract them. You guys will learn a ton from that. So.
That's a great point. Really, really good point. Yeah, I mean, everything we really talk about in the show comes from that perspective, the perspective of somebody who's potentially going to lend through crowdfunding, through private lending. And, well, he's a turnkey investor as well. But, there's definitely some great ideas, even if you are not yourself looking to do any of these strategies. Stay tuned and listen up. So, all right, Dr. Kenyon Meadows, welcome to the show, man. It's good to have you here.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, why don't we begin at the beginning of your story? I mean, who are you? What do you do? And how'd you get into real estate?
Like a doctor, isn't he?
That's what I heard.
Right. I'm practicing radiation oncologist. So my day is spent taking care of cancer patients, treating them with radiation. And so that's where I spend most of my time. And when I'm not busy doing that or with my family, I'm a fairly active investor in alternative assets in general, including real estate.
Nice. Okay. Alternative assets. What do you mean by
let's get a definition on that alternative assets thing.
Yeah, well, the financial people define it as basically anything other than traditional stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, money markets, the things that we're all pretty familiar with. So anything else is an alternative. So real estate falls in that category, precious metals, you name it. Everything else is an alternative.
Okay. And why did you decide to get into alternative asset investing?
Well, basically some bad experiences with traditional investing. I really took a beating with the 2008 market downturn, and while the stock market's gone up pretty well this past year, I mean, if you look back over the last, from 2000 to 2015, the returns really aren't that great when you factor in things like inflation and taxes and everything. So I just basically wanted to figure out some different ways to invest money that wouldn't be subject to the sometimes pretty big downturns of the stock market. So that's what got me interested. Yeah.
It's great. It's a really, really good idea. Obviously, we talk about that a lot on the site. We talk about, the sense of control that comes with buying real estate. We don't obviously talk about precious metals or oil or some of the other stuff that I think you're talking about here. But yeah, I mean, even now, like if you look at the market, a lot of people argue it's extremely overvalued. There's a lot of bets being placed on a massive drop in taxes, which may or may not happen. And, we're looking at PEs in the upper 20s of the entire market, which is it's pretty crazy. So having alternatives to the stock market's awesome. And obviously this is a real estate show, so we're going to focus on that stuff. So usually what we'll do is kind of ask people about how they got started in real estate. So why don't we just do that with you as well? How'd you get into the real estate side of this?
Yeah, so really my very first alternative investment in any serious way was doing private mortgage lending, both to house flippers and also to some buy and hold landlords who had exhausted their supply of traditional mortgages and needed some private money. So that was really my first foray into any type of alternative. Was that?
And how did that happen? You just said, "Hey, I'm a doctor. I've got some cash on the side. I'm going to just lend money to flippers and landlords," and that was it. And how do you make that happen?
Well, honestly, asking around basically. So anybody that I could get my hands on, I asked them, what they were doing investment wise that was unique and new and everything. And ironically, there's actually a pastor I ran into at a dinner party who told me that he did some private mortgage lending, and I'd never heard of it. And after he explained it to me and put me in contact with some of the people that he loaned money to, and doing all the due diligence and learning about the process and everything. So it took some time. I'm pretty careful with this stuff, and I'll go through and read and talk and find out everything I can. But once I got comfortable with it, I plunged on in.
Well, it's an interesting start, and particularly given you found somebody so shady to help you out, like a pastor. I mean,
oh, come on.
Hard to trust those guys.
So pastors are good folks.
Good folks. Yeah, good folks. So, all right. So let's talk about you decided to get into this. What was your very first private lending deal like? I mean, how did that go down? Can you kind of explain, like, how, you don't have to name names, but like, how did that first deal happen?
Yeah. So, once I got comfortable with the person's track record, and again, I talked with lots of investors that had done prior deals with him, and got comfortable with the whole notion of, okay, well, what's an ARV? What's a scope of work, and what's the rehab budget, and then what's my loan to value? And I had to get comfortable with all those concepts, right? And once I got convinced that I was in at a good loan to value, I was well protected. And, at an interest rate that was attractive, with private lending, you could easily be in the double digits, 12, 14%, that kind of thing, which for me was a real revelation. I mean, I had been looking around for yield on things, and it was really hard to find anything like that in the traditional realm. So I was, pretty excited to do it. And, when it worked out and the project finished on time, and, you've been getting interest payments the whole time, and you get your money back and you can do it again. I mean, I was like, okay, this is pretty nice.
That's cool. Nice. That's cool. So, so go ahead.
I was going to ask a quick question on the interest payment, since you mentioned it, for those people who don't know. So I lend money to a flipper. The flip may take 6 months. Mm-hmm. So how do you structure those payments? Do you get, paid every month? How does all that work?
Yeah, I typically have always structured mine as a monthly payment. Despite the fact that you do your due diligence, the person is good at it and everything. You want them to have to. I think you want them to have to write you out, a check every month to kind of just remind them that they have these payments, and to just give them that little extra kick to get the project done. So that's how I generally structure it.
Yeah, cool. That's a good point. I've done when I borrow, because I've borrowed private lending and I've lent private money, but I've done a lot of borrowing, right? And sometimes it's monthly payments. I just pay monthly interest only payments. So if I'm borrowing $100,000 and I'm paying, 12% interest, I'm paying $1,000 a month, right? So the other times though, like especially the last couple of deals I did, I just did it all one lump sum payment at the end. So and they both have. I mean, that one lump sum payment at the end was really, really nice, but I also didn't have quite the fire underneath me that I did when I have that $1,000 a month payment coming. So exactly. I can definitely see both. So you mentioned a minute ago a couple terms that you said you had to kind of learn what these terms are. I want to actually go through those with you real quick if you don't mind, and in case there's people out here that have no idea what they are. So first one, you said ARV. What do you mean by that?
That's the after repair value, or what the person is confident they'll be able to sell the property for once it's all fixed up.
And why do you care about that as a private lender?
Well, basically that the more generous that ARV price is, the more protective equity you have in the project. So however much you loan on it, again, private lending, you kind of want to loan maybe 65, 70% is a kind of a benchmark number. So you basically have that as a protective cushion in case maybe they don't quite hit that ARV, and they might have to lower the price down a little bit. You're still protected because you're in the loan for less.
Okay, so on that note, let's run in a quick example. Let's just say, for easy numbers, a property that has an ARV of $100,000. You said you'll typically lend out 65%, we'll say, for that, which means $65,000. So let's say I'm a lender, I'm an investor, and I come to you and I say, hey, I've got this great deal, and I can buy it for $40,000, and it needs $25,000 of work, so a total of $65,000. Will you lend me that entire $65,000, including repairs, or do you want me to have something in there as well?
Yeah, generally speaking, I like to have the person have some money in the deal as well. Now, I will tell you, I've been working with some people for a while now and have done several deals and have gotten comfortable basically pushing that up and loaning more and more on the project. But that's only for folks that you have a good track record with.
Yeah. And to add one point there, if I came to you with that exact same situation, $100,000, and I said, hey, I got this great deal under contract for $5,000 and it needs $25,000 of work. Now there's a much better likelihood you're going to lend me the entire amount, I would assume, because you win no matter what. You would love if I didn't pay you and you had to take the property back.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so a lot of it just comes out of the deal you get as well.
Right. For a passive guy like me, though, that's kind of been always my theme with my real estate investing, because I definitely have a day job that keeps me busy. I don't want to necessarily go through the hassle of taking that property back, and fortunately, that has not happened thus far.
Well, that's good. That's good. Great. Well, and I think that's a good question. Then, how have you been so lucky?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I was going to ask, like, so how do you talked about the pastor and the references to other real estate investors. For somebody who may not have the network that you have or the connections, how would you suggest that somebody would go and vet a real estate investor who wants your money?
Well, for me, so number one, the person, the rehabber's company, kind of making sure, checking county records, like, is your company the one that's actually buying the properties? I checked that. I checked with, like I said, numerous people that had done deals with them in the past. I even spoke to some of the folks that were regular, like, rehab crews they were hired. Like, how is this person? The kind of work that they do? Is it quality? Do they cut corners? That kind of thing. So I talked to kind of everybody I could along the whole process there, basically.
That's great. Cool. That's really good. So what would impress you? If obviously somebody does good quality work, somebody's got a track record. How much of a track record matters to you? And then anything else that you'd want to share on that?
Well, the couple of guys I work with, they routinely do, 15, 20 or more flips a year. And another thing too, when they're able to support multiple projects and they're kind of volume people, they don't sweat if they have to, basically discount the property a little bit to move on and exit the deal and move on to the next. These are not people that are kind of, scrimping by capital wise. And that's really important too, I think.
So you're working with people who are not on their first deal and broke, like, I need cash. It's somebody who's maybe got 2 or 3 other things going on and their capital's already deployed. They're just looking for additional capital for other projects.
Right. Absolutely.
Got it. Okay.
I have one more question, unless you're going to.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm wondering, like, let's say you are brand new and you on your first deal and you want to you can't get a mortgage and you need a private lender. Do you have any advice for people that are in that situation right now?
Wow. From listening to the forums and talking with people, it seems to me that if someone's really persistent, they'll eventually be able to find someone to give them the money. I personally, being the more conservative guy, I would think that, sort of bootstrapping that first deal, maybe doing some wholesaling or hitting up friends and family or something else where you're doing that first deal, which may go wrong, not with sort of an outside investor's money, somebody that's really outside of your initial circle. That'd be my advice. I think it's a dicey project to take, really a third party person's money if you're sort of just getting into things, because there can be a lot of unforeseen things that go wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Hey, I got a quick question, non-real estate. Would radiation help me with my co-host problem?
With your I didn't know you had a co-host problem.
Never mind. Let's get back to this. All right.
It's time for
the Random 5. All right, for those of you who have been listening for this section of the show, we've been hiding this at the end of several episodes.
This is the Random 5.
This is the Random 5. All right, these are 5 random questions thrown at Kenyon, our guest today, after the show here. And number 1, it's just random questions. I just kind of get to know you a little better. Have you, how about this one? Do you have any irrational fears?
That was my question, really?
Sorry, I just took yours. Do you have any irrational fears, something you're afraid of that is silly?
Yes, I do.
I know you do.
This is for Kenyon. Yeah. Pickles.
Irrational fears. Yeah. Phobias, anything like that. No, not really, man.
All right.
Not that I would say.
Yeah, Josh is afraid.
I'm afraid of everything. I'm afraid of light. I'm afraid of dark. I'm afraid of sun. I'm afraid of clouds.
What?
Grass.
So
people, beards.
calm down. Calm down.
You're on some anti-anxiety medicine, John?
Yeah.
Good. I just don't like cream cheese or pickle.
Yeah, if there's a pickle, like I've been out to restaurants with Josh, and he'll he'll say to the waitress or waiter, "No pickle on my food," and then he'll be like, "No, seriously, no pickle. I will freak out if there's a pickle." And they'll come out with the plate, and there on the plate is a pickle, and he will flip. I mean, he throws tables, and he shot a man once. I mean.
All right, next question on the Random Five, Kenyon. Do not listen to my co-host. Have you ever won an award? And if so, what was it for?
I run first team GTE academic All-American football, small college football.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Not bad.
There you go. Nice.
That's cool. What position did you play?
Defensive end.
Nice. Very cool. Number 3, if you could sit down with your 15-year-old self, what would you tell him or her? Well, what would you tell him?
Put your hands away.
15. Oh my God. Oh man, that's interesting. 15. I don't know. Don't play video games all day. I was an idiot at 15. You know.
That's a good answer. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. What? Okay, I'm excited about this one. What was your worst haircut of all? I know you had that.
I can recall that. You know, so you guys remember in the early '90s, the old high top fades were going on. Kid and Play, remember that?
Oh yeah.
So I had a miniature version of that, and we're getting I'm getting it touched up in the football locker room in high school, and the guys are messing around and and they bumped the dude's hand. Well, it's cutting my hair and just put almost like a little Gumby thing going on the side. Yeah.
How tall was it? It
was probably about a good 4 inches. It wasn't super tall, but it was a nice little block there. It
wasn't like an Abe Lincoln hat, but
no, it wasn't that big. No.
Good enough.
Yeah, but that in high school though, a messed up haircut like that, you know how that goes.
Kenyon, if you can supply us, or if anyone listening could supply us with photos of Kenyon with said haircut, please do send them to. No, you don't have to send them. We're not going to.
All right, my last question, or the last question of the Random 5. Are there any household chores you secretly enjoy? Which ones and why?
Secretly enjoy. I don't mind sweeping up. There's something satisfying about, seeing a bunch of crap on the floor and getting it up pretty quickly. I don't mind sweeping.
All right.
Don't tell my wife, though.
Awesome, man.
Awesome. All right, thank you.
So, what would you tell somebody? I think we'll transition away from this in a second. But what would you tell somebody that, other doctors or attorneys or other professionals who are doing well, or they don't have to be professionals necessarily, but these guys are thinking, they want to deploy their capital. They're thinking about being a private lender. It makes sense for them. What pearls of wisdom would you offer to them as they just get into that stage of things?
Well, I'm big on the education piece. Okay. I mean, I don't think you should invest in anything unless you really know the ins and outs of it. So certainly I'd recommend books, podcasts, and sort of get the lingo down and sort of have a working knowledge of how it works. And then I think you got to find a mentor, right? Somebody who's actually doing the same thing that you want to do, and take them to lunch, hang out with them, see how they've done, pick their brain, that kind of thing. That's been huge for me. So I think those are 2 real key things. And so that's the thing, right? It does take a little bit of upfront work, or maybe even a lot of upfront work. But once you get it in place, at least I found, you find reliable people to work with up front, and those relationships, it can really be productive for years.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming, while you're doing some of these other things that we're going to talk about, you're continuing to lend out private money on the background, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Perfect.
Correct.
Cool. All right. So what came next? What other real estate alternative stuff are you doing?
Well, yeah, the next thing was buying some physical property, some buy and hold. And I was actually pretty reluctant to do that for a while, mainly because I bought into the notion that, owning a rental like no matter what, in terms of having a property manager or this and that, it was going to be a hassle to deal with. So I was pretty darn reluctant to do it. But as it turns out, one of the folks I was loaning money to help them build their portfolio, ironically, another physician and wife couple, he works and she runs the real estate portfolio. As I was loaning private money to them, they were the ones that were encouraging me, like, hey, Kenyon, loaning the money's great, getting these high interest rates are great, but if you're going to build some permanent wealth, you got to own this stuff, and the interest payments, they aren't taxed. There's no favorable tax treatment on interest from private lending, and so as she started to talk to me more about it, that warmed me up to the idea of doing the turnkey rentals. So that was next.
Got it. Before you go into turnkey rentals, the tax on interest rates not being favorable, can you explain that?
Well, the interest payments that you get on the private loans, there's no depreciation, on it, or it's basically taxed as ordinary income. So, while it's a nice return, you definitely pay the tax man.
Yep, for sure. Okay. So, sorry about that.
Turnkey.
So turnkey. So now you're into the buy and hold, and you're not out there buying the properties, looking through the neighborhood and buying them yourself. You're finding these quote turnkey properties. So what is a turnkey property? How do you find them? And tell us about your experiences. Yeah.
So that term turnkey, basically it means buying a rental property that somebody else has basically sourced it, done the necessary rehab to it, put a tenant in place, and most of the time, not all the time, they stay on and are the property manager of it too. And once all that stuff's in place and a tenant's been found, that's typically when the investor is engaged to buy it. So there's cash flow coming in right from the time that you get it. And I would say that it's meant to be basically a very supposed to be hands-off, hassle-free experience for investors. That's how it's sold. And from what I gather, your mileage may vary in the turnkey game. There's some good ones and there's some not so good ones. I think I found a good one.
So how did you find your turnkey provider? I'll go there. There's kind of like 100 questions I want to ask you on this, but
right.
How did you find your turnkey provider? And then, how do you know you're not going to get burned from them? Like, how do you just trust this company is just going to do a good job?
Right. So, my experience is a little unique. Okay. So I follow that space. I read the forums. And so I know what other people are going through. And so I know for a lot of folks, they do a Google search. They read a BiggerPockets forum and they get a few companies and they kind of go look them up. And that's the beginning of the relationship. Whereas with me, I actually knew my turnkey provider a couple of years ahead of time through this whole private lending thing.
Okay.
So I had a unique insight into how they were going to do things. So I had an extra level of confidence. So that's not a typical entry point for most people, I think, getting into turnkey.
Okay. So what about the people that are listening right now that don't know a turnkey provider? Do you have any advice for them for how do you know you're not going to pick the wrong one? Or how can you prevent it?
Well, there certainly is a lot on the web there in terms of people's reputations, and there is enough information, I think, out there for, say, for instance, folks that have not had great experiences. I've certainly have read a lot of them, and if you continue to delve into it, and I've called people too. I've called investors and companies that I was considering. They lived out of state. Talk to them about their experiences and things of that nature. And what you tend to find is that a few names start to kind of bubble up to the top that are consistently considered to be quality. And so you can find it. It takes a little bit of due diligence, but I think it's not too hard to find out who the good ones are and bad ones.
Yeah, I think that's true. And like you said, you called people who had those turnkey companies. If I was going to go out and buy anything, I typically ask for other people, hey, who's ever bought this before? Like if I want to buy I'm thinking about buying a, what do they call the Toyota RAV4? I really am. I'm like, hey, that kind of seems like a cool car. So I'm asking, hey, has anybody listening to this podcast bought a RAV4? What do you think? Leave a message in the comments at biggerpockets.com/show219. Did you like that?
Selfish,
I totally
shifted
bastard. The gear to me. But anyway, so I want to ask people's advice. So same thing, right? Like if you're going to go deal with a turnkey company, talk to them. Hey, can you give me the name of 10 of your clients? And then actually call those clients and just dig into them and find out.
Yeah, and that was really useful because I found it. There's a wide variety of what people will consider due diligence or what's adequate for them, and a lot of that's based on their prior experience. Like I talked to one woman out in California when I was considering buying some turnkey in Cleveland, and she owned a couple, and she'd never had been to the city. She just basically bought them off the internet. But they were also like her 9th and 10th properties, and so she'd already bought a few other places. And so just that comfort level of making a big purchase like that, strictly based off of online and not going there physically to look at the neighborhood or look at the property, which is what I had just done. So it was amazing the variety of what people will consider to be due diligence with turnkey.
Yeah, and we definitely recommend that people do not do that, especially if they're new. Like, don't just go. And that's why a lot of people give me grief about all the Detroit stuff. But that's the whole point here is you got to do your homework. You got to get boots on the ground, whether they're yours or somebody else's that and that you trust, and take a look at these properties. There's companies who market pigs and call them something else. Because you're not going out there, you're not looking at it, you don't see the neighborhoods, you don't know where they're necessarily putting these properties up, and you can very quickly get burned, to Brandon's point. So especially if you're new, make sure if you're thinking about picking up turnkey properties that you do a thorough job vetting the company, and then get out there, see what they're talking about, look at their operation, look at the properties that they've already done projects with, and talk to other folks.
No doubt. So, mine in particular, they're about an hour away. And so I can drive to them and see them and everything. Although I will say I would be comfortable doing the real long distance thing at this point, but it just so happens that, my provider and my network and all that, not too far away, but I rarely see the properties anymore. So
what cities did you buy in?
Jacksonville, exclusively at this point. Yep.
Okay.
Florida.
So, Yeah, I had a guy tell me from BiggerPockets actually emailed me last week, and he said, Brandon, I need your help. I'm so worried. I'm working with this turnkey company. We're a couple days from closing, and it's $40,000. It's really like most of my life savings, $40,000, and now I'm getting nervous, and I don't know, is the property in a bad condition? I don't know. He had all these problems, and like my email was like, fly there. I mean, like if you're talking $40,000, what's $400 for a flight to go there? Check it out. Like sleep in a car. I don't care. Just like get there and go check it out. Drive the neighborhood and see what you're doing. And the second piece of advice I have people is don't ever rely on a turnkey provider to do your math homework for you. Like they're incentivized. A turnkey company is incentivized to make the property look as good as possible on paper for you. And I'm not saying they're not being deceptive. I'm not saying all turnkey companies or even most are deceptive. I think they're good companies, but at the end of the day, it's on you to do your homework, you to do the math. So, and if people want help with their little math homework, we do have calculators on BiggerPockets. You can use them 5 times, I think, for free if you're a free member, or if you're a pro member, you can get unlimited access. So, if you want to check them out, go to BiggerPockets.com/analysis. You can get a kind of a free trial there. So, try it out.
Absolutely. So the turnkey were that's been a big thing for me, and having bought our first one in 2014 and so having had them for a little bit now, I can truly say that they've been relatively passive. I mean, a few phone calls, emails, that kind of thing, and we've had 2 vacancies, but it's really been a pretty passive experience, which was key for me. And so I think a good turnkey provider could be a good thing for other professionals who want some exposure to real estate and don't want to have to give up a lot of time.
What kind of return can somebody expect on a turnkey property? You go out, we talk about the 2% rule, the 1%. We talk about these different kinds of returns. What could somebody expect from different turnkey properties?
Well, I can speak from my experience. So, having listened to a lot of you guys' material and everything, I try to stick to the 1% rule. Getting that 1% of the purchase price as rent at least per month, and trying to stick to those B neighborhoods. Not too expensive, but definitely not war zone either. And that's what I've done. So all my properties adhere to the 1% rule. It's gotten a little bit tougher to get that. The Jacksonville market is, it's heating up, as a lot of them are. and it's got good demographics, and people are moving there and everything. So it's getting harder to find things, but that's what I try to stick to, neighborhood wise and return wise.
Okay,
got it.
And how many total deals have you done now? Turnkey ones.
We just recently picked up our seventh.
Seventh. Okay, that's cool. And what do you average? I mean, what's the average purchase price for these properties then?
Yeah, the average purchase price has been around $80,000, and the rent has been anywhere from $950 to $1,100.
Okay, and I'm assuming tenant usually pays their own like water, sewer, garbage, things like that.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. And what about? Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, on these turnkey properties, are you buying them like you would any other property? I go and I find a property in my neighborhood. I want to buy it as a rental house. So I buy the house, I put 20% down or less. And is that what you're doing on these, 20%?
Actually, no. The first couple were cash purchases, and then I did somewhat of a unique thing. I kind of went to the friends and family, as it were, and got some private money from them, and have done the remainder of the deals with some short-term private money down. Actually,
okay.
I knew some people in my network that had some cash sitting around that wasn't doing anything. And so, we structured a private loan to me, and that's how I've been able to get the rest.
Okay. Can you explain how you did that exactly, and how would how would your peers, for the people that you borrowed from, expect to get a return? How are you going to pay them back?
Yeah, well, I structured it as an interest only, either a 1 or a 2 year loan with a balloon type situation, and basically between my earnings, some flip profits, and some other things. That's how I'm able to pay people back. But kind of more globally here now, I'm actually working on my first cash out refinance as well. So properties have gone up, a good 15-20% or so. At least that's what it looks like. And with interest rates getting ready to go up, I think now's a good time to do that. So that's ultimately what I'm going to do as well.
Okay. Awesome.
So that's kind of the exit strategy on using the short-term lending is you acquire with the short-term, refinance it later.
Exactly.
Sounds a little like the BRRRR strategy to me.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Well, cool. All right. So you've been doing you started with the private lending, moved into the turnkey space, and then I read somewhere that you've been doing some crowdfunding stuff as well. Can we talk about that? Yeah,
absolutely. So in my lookings around for alternatives, I was a pretty early adopter on the real estate crowdfunding. I started participating on some of the platforms in late 2013 and have continued to do so over this time. And so definitely have done a number of those deals, which for folks that don't know, what I do on them is principally debt deals. So the same way that I was providing money to people in my network to flip houses, it's really the same concept. It's just that you're doing it online through a website, and you're putting in a fraction of the money because it's a crowdfunded loan. So you don't have to put up all the money. So it's a very cool way to do some private lending with a much lower amount of money per deal anyway.
Okay. How much are you putting per deal approximately?
Yeah, when I first started, it was difficult to do anything less than $5,000 per deal, and now there's a few that are proliferated that you can do 1,000, and there's one in particular that lets you put in as little as $100. So yeah,
interesting. So what kind of returns do you see on that? Yep. I mean, like, what kind of percentage return do you hope for or get?
Well, yeah, I was looking at that and prep for the show. So over the years that I've been doing it, I've averaged 11%. Now, I will say in the earlier years, it was much easier to get the offerings on the platforms were, routinely 12, 13%. And I think now that more and more people have gotten into it, I think the platform, the yields have gone down. It's kind of more in the 9-10% range, but still, that's not bad to be able to, be secured and still get that kind of return compared to, what's out there otherwise.
So how many of these crowdfunding deals have you participated in?
35 at this point.
35.
And have they all worked out well, or are some still going on, I'm assuming, or any failed?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, 35. I think it's had 13 that have successfully exited. They paid their interest throughout the year or whatever and got my capital back. And there's 3 that are in basically various stages of default at this point. And so they were paying, and then, when the project was time to wrap up, something didn't go quite so well. They weren't able to sell or refinance, that kind of deal. And so the platforms will send you notifications that they are doing the legal thing and will take back the property. And thus far, I've gotten assurances, at least, that I'll eventually be made whole. But, depending on the state that it's in and everything, how long that could potentially take.
Interesting.
So how? Okay.
So 3 out of 35, not bad, and haven't lost any money thus far.
So you've had 13 exits, 3 in some stage of default, so that's 16.
That are 16 that are performant, yeah.
And then
currently
another.
Performant.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And how can you avoid those 3? How does one? and I haven't done anything on the crowdfunding platforms, but I'm assuming that there's enough info to potentially protect yourself, but maybe it's just inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the good platforms out there, and over the years, there's a few of them that have emerged as kind of like the industry leaders. They've been around for a few years now, at least, which is about as long as you can be around as a real estate crowdfunding platform. And I think they've gotten more selective as to who they let on there. They call them sponsors, the people that put the deals on there. And the track record, they have to have a good track record before they can get on the platform. And all that information's there. So you can see like how many deals they've done, what their success percent's been, and all that. So it's all there for you, and all the merits of the deal itself in terms of the ARV or whatever the exit strategy. So you can comb through all that stuff. But ultimately, I do think that the main thing is, if you're going to do it, I think you need to be involved in sort of multiple small deals spread out all over, some diversification, because some of them are going to, inevitably go bad.
I think that's smart. Yeah, I never really thought about that before. I've thought about, hey, maybe I'll just take, 5 or 10 grand and just throw it into one and see what happens. But I actually like the idea of thinking, well, why don't I just do 10 of them and see where they...
Yeah, if you're only going to do 5 or 10 grand, I would go with one of the sites that lets you put like $1,000 on each, you know what I mean? Yeah. And spread it out. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I think that's very smart. I never thought about that. So very cool. Very cool. Well, so what's your plans going forward from this? I mean, where do you see yourself in the next 3, 5, 10 years? You want to quit your job eventually or buy more properties? So.
Yeah, we'll definitely want to continue to acquire more rentals. I mean, that's thinking about that. That's going to be, basically a big supplement for the retirement kind of thing. Keeping these rental properties and whatnot. So that's definitely a big thing. I want to continue to do the private lending, and in talking with my colleagues and just other people in my social circle, just trying to get the word out about these other ways to invest money, right? And so that was kind of the impetus to start the blog, book, that kind of thing. So trying to be an educational resource for people.
Got it. That's awesome. All right. So, I talk to a lot of people who are they don't want to be the landlord. They don't want to buy and hold property themselves. They don't want to deal with all the drama. The market they're worried about, they're concerned. What would you tell them? Where would you tell that guy to start if they wanted to be in the real estate game? Would you say crowdfunding? Would you say the private lending? Would you turnkey? I mean, you still do kind of have to do some management.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's interesting. I got contacted by a colleague. It's a colleague. He's a new graduate, fresh out of residency, a new doctor, tons of debt that he's got to pay off, which was my situation. But he wants to get into the real estate game, and he asked me my advice. So I was just tackling this last week, and he's got a fairly modest amount of money, and that's exactly what I told him. I was like, you know what? You should take advantage of the technological innovation with this crowdfunding. I mean, to be able to get into private lending for such modest amounts of money, that's incredible. And so I told him that I would recommend that he do that if he's looking strictly for a passive investment, but wants some exposure to real estate. So that's what I would encourage folks to do.
Yeah, right on. And what would you tell yourself if you were talking to yourself when you were, well, I don't know, when you graduate all your schooling for being a doctor, you're probably 40 already, but what would you tell a younger you, maybe in the 20s, about getting into this? Would you have started a lot sooner if you had known?
I would have. I definitely would have. I think about the opportunities to maybe have, plucked up some of these properties, after the mortgage crisis and that kind of deal where where deals really could have been had. So that would have been awesome if I would have had the knowledge and I wouldn't have been scared to just take the plunge and be able to get some of these properties so much cheaper. So that would have been great. Yes.
No, that's cool. That's cool. All right. Well, before we go to the fire round, because you do other investments outside of real estate, I'm just
absolutely
curious if you could give us like 2 or 3 minutes on some of those other investments, some of the other strategies that you employ in those alternate investments.
Right. So as it turns out, I really like lending money and basically high yield debt in all its forms. So certainly private mortgage lending is one, but some of the other online platforms that have emerged kind of along with real estate crowdfunding. There's consumer lending that you can do. They call it peer-to-peer lending, where you can basically loan money unsecured, to somebody online, and you're basically doing the same kind of analysis on them that a bank or a credit card company would do. They have their FICO score and their income, their debt to income ratio, and all that, and you can loan an individual person money. And
is that like Prosper Lending Club, those guys?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So Lending Club's the one in particular I've been on. Yes.
Yeah. I've been
definitely like that.
Lending Club as well.
Yeah, definitely. And in another area that I don't think as many people know about is you can basically do the same thing as Lending Club, but to small businesses. Now there's a lot fewer platforms and the profile isn't as big, but there are platforms out there that cater to small businesses, not startups. These are established small businesses that have revenue, customers, and all that kind of stuff. And they want loans that basically are too small for the banks to want to deal with, like maybe $50,000, $75,000, and the platforms will crowdfund those out to investors too. And the yields on them can be comparable to private mortgage lending. You're talking, mid-teen %, and they'll do it because they don't have really any other way to get those kind of loans.
Name one or two of those platforms? Yeah,
there's one. Funding Circle is one, cool. And P2B Investor. That's P, the letter 2, and B, Investor. That's another one. So cool. Definitely something to check out. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. No, that's great. That's great. Really helpful. Cool. All right. What do you think, Brandon? Is it time?
I think it's time. Why don't we head over to the dangerous fire?
It's time for the fire round.
All right, the fire round. These questions come direct out of the BiggerPockets forums, which of course our listeners can get to and should be interacting with on a daily basis over at BiggerPockets.com/forums. Great bunch of people over there just answering questions and offering advice. So, and I know you're familiar with that as well, Kenyon. Yeah. So let's get to these questions. Number one. It's a little bit longer, but I'm going to read the whole thing because I think it's a good question. Mm-hmm. At the moment, I'm working on my business card to get set up as a wholesaler. My question is, before I start going to a local meetup and networking, should I have multiple business cards, like one for sellers, another for buyers, or should I just have one card that has information for both types of people? What do you think?
Don't know if I'm the expert in that, but I would tend to specialize and have a card for each type of person you're going to interact with. I think that comes across as better.
I agree. I like it.
Fair enough. Cool. All right, next question. I'm looking into my first deal, but I don't have a ton of money. Should I buy something cheaper, but in a worse location, like a war zone potentially, or wait to save up more to buy in a better neighborhood?
I would definitely recommend that you wait and save up and buy in a better neighborhood.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Agreed.
All right.
That was easy.
Yeah. All right.
See, this is how the fire round's supposed to be.
Yeah, nice and quick.
Okay.
All right. I have $400,000 in student loan debt, but I should be making $300,000 a year as a dermatologist starting this year. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you're familiar with people who have massive student loan debt, but they're going to make massive income. So should I wait to invest? What do you suggest?
Well, I think that would come down to what the interest rate and structure is on that student loan debt. Now, for me, this is kind of a little longer answer. For me, when I didn't have a lot of good ideas about how to invest my money, my first few years, I poured into paying off really some low interest student loan debt that in retrospect, it might have been smarter to let ride and use some of that money to invest. So basically, I think it comes down to how that debt is structured. If it's long term and low interest, I might pay the minimum on that and do more aggressive investing, because you can't make up for that time, you know?
Got it. Awesome. All right. Last question. What's the worst thing a tenant has done to one of your properties?
Man, I gotta say, I've had a pretty charmed existence. I mean, the couple of vacancies I've had, pretty minor. So no horror stories there. Wish I had something more exciting.
Vacancies. It's all good.
Routine stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, beautiful thing. Perfect. Yeah. All right.
Let's head over and close out this show with our world famous four. All right, these are the same 4 questions we ask every guest every week, and we're going to throw them at you right now. Kenyon, number 1, what is your favorite real estate related book?
Yeah, little different one here. Bridge Over Troubled Wall Street by Stephen Gardner. He is a financial planner, but he advocates for alternative strategies for folks, including doing bridge loans and private mortgage lending. So definitely a book I would recommend.
Awesome. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
We love when we get new suggestions, so thank you for that. What about favorite business book?
The Alternative Answer by Jim Rice. It's basically kind of a primer introductory book on alternative assets. Covers a whole range of things. Just awesome.
Cool. Mm-hmm. What about hobbies? What do you do for fun when you're not investing in real estate?
Yeah, used to be a big time video gamer. I still squeeze in a little bit here or there. Occasionally.
By your age, you're talking about like Duck Hunt and Legend of Zelda, right?
Well, hey, I stretch back to that. I remember the old Atari.
I know,
and everything.
Man.
Absolutely,
we're the same
man.
age. I get it.
Absolutely. So no, man, I've made the transition. I got my Call of Duty and Battlefield occasionally.
Ah, nice.
Okay.
I've been big into Battlefield. I've been big into Battlefield 1 lately. It's been my jam.
Right. Too complicated for me. Too many buttons.
There's the old man on the porch.
Get out of here! Get off my lawn!
Did you guys hear about? I just saw this video the other day. Duck Hunt was released or is being released as a virtual reality game, and so you're like with the Oculus or whatever. So you get the gun and you're in a total 3D world of playing the classic Duck Hunt game. I'm excited for that.
I'm looking forward to that Oculus getting up to speed.
Me too.
I'm going to take a look at that for sure.
Yeah, next few years are going to be exciting.
Zombies out there in the world. Like, who needs crack anymore? I got my Oculus.
Well, imagine they're owned by Facebook, right? So imagine the day when you go on Facebook, it just means putting on your virtual reality glasses and just hanging out with your friends and some weird online. I don't know. It's going to be weird.
They're scary.
Crazy. Yeah. Exciting.
All right. My last question of the day. What do you believe sets apart successful real estate investors from all those who give up, fail, or never get started?
I think having a great knowledge base before you delve in, and that includes having a pretty clear idea of what the downsides could be. Once I knew that gave me the confidence to wade in and try my first deal and go at it. So that's what I would say.
All right.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Last question for me is, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, well, you can check out my site. It's alternativefinancialmedicine.com. There you'll find some cool interviews, including some folks that you guys know, like Nav Athwal, head of Realty Shares, that kind of thing. Cool. People that I've gotten in my network. And also want to plug a book of the same title, Alternative Financial Medicine, just released early this week on Amazon, where I talk about all these alternative strategies that I'm into.
That's awesome.
Cool.
No, that's exciting.
Congrats on the book. And that's great.
Definitely.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming on. We definitely do appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you around the BiggerPockets community. And thanks so much for sharing these I can't say the damn word. Alternate real estate investments.
Alternative? Is that a better word?
Alternative, yes.
Like alternative rock? I don't know. All right. Kenyon, thank you so much for being here. This was fun.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. We'll see you.
All right, guys, that was Dr. Kenyon Meadows. Big thanks again to Mr. Meadows. That was awesome, man.
Yeah, it was. I like learning, from people who are doing things a little different than I am. I've never done crowdfunding. I've never done a turnkey, and I've only done a little bit of private lending. So, I'm learning stuff every time I do these shows. So, very cool.
That's great. It's great. And what you had talked about in the beginning is, even if you don't do that, thinking about it as an investor who might be soliciting a private investor and hearing from his side just kind of gives you an alternate idea of how to do things.
Yeah, alternative assets, just like our guest today talks about. So
fancy. Yeah, great stuff. Good show. Cool. So, all right. Cool, man. So, what's the latest, man? I feel like I saw a picture of your backyard with like snow in it. Don't you live in Seattle? Does it ever snow there?
We did get a couple inches, and it covered everything in some white snow. It was pretty cool. But it's all gone now. Now it's just rain again because that's what we do.
Wow, that's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
That's all right. No, it's I don't know what's been new in your world. I mean, I haven't even talked to you very much lately. You've been off doing cool CEO things, and I've been in my basement chained to where you chained me a few years ago, and I haven't left.
Oh, that's kind of kinky or weird. Something. I don't know what you do, man. Just don't share it with me. I'm all right. We've had my folks in town for a while due to some family illness stuff. As of today, the date of recording, they have boarded a plane on their way home. So I want to wish them lots of luck on their journey. But no, things are good, man. Just what we saw this past week, I went to an awesome show. It was Rain. It was Songs of the Beatles. I brought the kids. It was a little late. It was like a 7:00 show. So my 6-year-old by 9 was out cold. My 8-year-old made it all the way till the end at 10, but it was cool. It was like going back to a 1960s concert, which,
nice.
Obviously I wouldn't know anything about.
You wouldn't. We are both dead then. Are you dead before you're alive? I don't know. How do you say that?
I don't know. You're the pastor.
I'm not the pastor.
You're a youth pastor, youth minister.
No,
what are you?
I'm a youth leader. It's a very different thing.
Because you couldn't qualify to be a pastor.
They wouldn't let me in. Apparently, you have to be ordained to be called a pastor.
Apparently, the standards. I hope the standards are higher for a youth leader than a minister. Like you have our children at hand.
I do. I'm teaching the younger generation how to not be complete screw ups. Working on it.
Oh wow. Well, maybe we should find another teacher for that one.
Maybe. All right. So if you guys noticed today on the show, we did what's called the Random 5, which is a new segment of the show that if you listen to the past few episodes of the BiggerPockets podcast,
it's at the very
end. After the music plays and everything, you'll find a segment that we hid in there. So if you didn't hear that, go back there and listen. But Josh, I want to ask you a couple of these Random 5 questions.
Go for it. Let's do it.
Number one. What is the strangest date you've ever been on?
What is the strangest date you've ever been on?
I'm asking you.
The strangest date I've ever been on. That's a good question. I didn't do a lot of. Oh, you know what? Strangest date I've ever been on was the first date with my current wife.
Really?
Yes, we went out and I lived in LA. We went out to the movies, and back in the day, I was pretty broke and never carried cash. Everything was on my credit card. So we're living in LA. We go to the movies first, or did we go to dinner? We went to dinner first, bought it on my credit card, went to the movies.
That's very financially savvy of you. Good job.
Yes. Went to the movies. And of course, this was one of those, the little movie chains that play the local movies and things like that, artsy movies. And they did not take credit cards, and I had no cash. And it was embarrassing. It was really, really embarrassing.
Your first date. Ouch.
That was the first date, and that is my current wife. So that's how amazing she is.
Who would have ever thought that Josh Dorkin, who had no money for a movie, would someday, I don't know, what did you do in life? Nothing.
Not go to the movies?
You still go to the
too
movies.
Expensive.
Exactly.
$15 to go see a movie. Come on.
Yeah, we can watch it on Redbox later or Netflix or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
All right, we'll get
one.
answer. All right, next one. If you could, how about this one? Have you ever set up two friends on a date? How did it go?
I don't think I have.
Really?
Yeah. I've always shied away from connecting people out of fear that I would piss everybody off.
Wow, that's very deep. I'm not sure if that's Talent of your personality or what?
I don't know. It's talent of something.
All right. Next one. Do you have any physical features you try to cloak or hide? How come?
Impossible.
That's a very personal question.
Next question.
Do you secretly? Okay, I'll say. Do you secretly miss Polaroid cameras, the instant cameras?
I never use them a lot, but I was at a kid's birthday party the other day, and they are actually back. They now have Polaroid cameras again, and they're pretty cool. But no, I don't, because the quality was always terrible.
It was kind of fun. But we do today with our phones. We're like, hey, look at there I am.
Yeah, but then people never print them out and actually have a physical version of those pictures, which is kind of nice.
Maybe that's the next company that Josh Dorkin makes is an iPhone attachment that prints out your photos like a Polaroid.
I'm sure they exist.
I'm sure they exist.
Do you have any more questions?
Okay, I got one more.
Last one.
How do you engage with panhandlers on the street?
Wow. I would say the majority of time I will acknowledge them, look them in the face and say, sorry, I don't have anything. On occasion, if they look like they're potentially disturbed, I'll just walk by very quickly. And once in a while, I mean, like, when I used to live in New York City and I was always walking with my lunch to work, I'd go to McDonald's or somewhere and pick up a bite. I'd have an extra burger or something and I'd always give it to him. Nice. So, yeah, cool. one of a few options. Randomly throw money at somebody, not actually throw it like, here you go, it's flying.
If you can catch it, you can keep it.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, well, good job. All right.
I get to ask you next time, so yeah.
All right, well, next time we'll try to remember that.
All right,
well, let's get out of here.
All right, guys, thanks for listening. We're out of here. Take care. Peace.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.